Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another Teen SRP. So today we are going to be going over a little bit about Japanese culture in regards to their summer festivals that they have. And it's going to vary. So when I say a summer festival in Japan, I'm not really referring to one specific festival. I'm referring to all of the festivals that are held throughout July and August across Japan. Of course, wherever you're at, it varies depending upon what you're doing. And it's also one of those things, there are minor cultural differences depending upon the region that you're in. So we're gonna kind of go over traditional dress and things like that for summer festival, as well as um, some of the foods and games that they typically host. Alright, so first we're gonna go ahead and go over a little bit about the different summer festivals that are out there in Japan. Um, I'm going to skip over some of these early ones so we can actually get to the real summer festivals. So, as you can see, Japan has a lot of different festivals throughout the year. And mainly when they do, it's typically centered around a local shrine, season, or historical holiday. Um, so, unlike uh, here in the States, we don't really celebrate the changing of seasons too much, sadly. Whereas in Japan, they kind of do. Um, Normally, it's a seasonal holiday, um, such as going into winter or spring or things of that nature. As you can see, one of the first ones listed here is in February during snow days. So it's one of those things, they like to celebrate the seasons as well, not just the historical holidays. Um, so during the summer, you'll see a lot of summer festivals. As you can see here, there's a huge chunk. And their summer is typically July and August, is when they're having these events. And now this is just a few of them. Remember earlier I was saying how a lot of the summer festivals, they are depending upon the region that you're at. So it's not necessarily just one big summer festival or maybe one or two. It's all over Japan that you're seeing these happen. Um, so here's a couple of the big ones going on. But during these summer festivals, typically what they're doing is they'll have parades, they'll have games, they'll have food, all the things you would think of at a normal festival. They would also have They'll also have like activities for you to do, and things like that nature. But they're usually leading up to a shrine during the summer. Um, so So another thing about these is they'll also tend to have multiple days that are celebrated throughout this. So it'll typically be like the weekend, or it'll be the night before and then the day up. And so once you kind of see that, it's kind of neat because that means they're not just celebrating that one day, they're kind of spreading it out, they're making the most of it, and they're really trying to uh, go all out each and every year for all of these different holidays. It's pretty amazing. But you'll see like parades, you'll see floats, you'll see dancers, you'll see singers, all of that. It's really kind of amazing when you look at it. I haven't personally been, but I've seen a lot of videos and I would love to go one day. But that's kind of what you can expect from a traditional uh, I say traditional. Well, that's what you could expect from going to a Japanese summer festival that you would see here today. And like I said, a lot of these kind of center around whatever shrine or season. And since we're talking about summer festivals, they're typically centered around their shrine, their deity, their god or goddess, or whoever they're celebrating that day. And so if you're going to one, I would just kind of read up on what exactly they're celebrating, uh, because sometimes it can be. It's always good. I'll put it this way: it's always good for you to know what you're stepping into. So I would definitely, if you're gonna go, make sure you read up on this stuff. Don't just kind of take everything at face value. So next we'll go ahead and go into, do I want to do food or dress or games? All right, let's go ahead and talk about food because I'm hungry. And why not just make myself even more hungry? uh, so we'll talk a little bit about traditional foods and things like that that you'll see at summer festivals or street foods, as they like to call them. So these are all, it's all going to be a little bit different. And I would recommend, if you're going, definitely try a little bit of everything. What's funny though is when you do go to these festivals, it's always like large portions. Um, so that's interesting to see, in all honesty. Another thing to note about these is they're normally thematic to summer foods. So you'll see like shaved ice and things like that, sweet treats, more of the cooling type of things. But this article that I found, it breaks it down into like your sweets and savories and things of that nature. Um, I can't pronounce these names, so I really don't want to try and mess it up and then get called out on it. So we're gonna talk. So this one is. So for this one, it looks kind of interesting because it has a lot of different flavors and textures in it. So this one, they consider it a type of pancake, and it doesn't have any batter in it. It's, as you can see plainly, eggs, bacon, and then you also have cabbage, a specific type of sauce in it, and then batter, which isn't necessarily, the batter part of it is not as predominant as everything else. As you can see in the photo, it's very kind of limited. But this food looks delicious and I want to try it so bad. I have actually cooked a little bit of Japanese food. Um, some of it not successfully, but some of it has been, and it's been really good. Um, but then you have like all these other different types of foods that are very, very native to specifically their summer festivals. So now we'll get into the sweets, which I absolutely love. So they have fried ice cream that they'll sell, and then kagori. Now this one I know, sorry, kagori. This one is the shaved ice, basically a snow cone. But the ones that I've seen are massive, like the size of your face, massive. At least the photos that I see from it, which is kind of interesting. But the nice part about their shaved ice is it's not just corn syrup. They go for like matcha, they have ramune, and they have a whole bunch of other different like mix-ins, like coconut milk. So it's a little bit more than just kind of what we think of as our standard shave ice. And then the taigaki, I think that's how you say it. These are the ones that everybody always sees in like the animes and the mangas and things like that. This, to me, this is like the iconic Japanese summer food that you always see everywhere. And it's really interesting because I actually had one time I had gotten it from H Mart, and it was not what I expected. So the one that I had gotten, so I was expecting, based off of like all these animes and mangas and stuff that I had watched, I was expecting it to be filled with like ice cream or something. It was actually filled with what they, I think it's a red bean paste or something like that, and it was really good. It was different too. It's not, so this is a sweet treat, but it's not really, it's not sweet like how we think of sweet. Like when we think of sweet, we think of ice cream, we think of Oreos, we think of Reese's, things that are really, really sugary. This was sweet in the sense that it kind of had that pancake like batter, um, with a little bit more sugar in it, and it had the red bean paste was more of, I don't even know how to describe it. It was really good though. It was like a sweet yet a very, very dull kind of sweet because it was still beans. So it was just kind of interesting. And it also wasn't like super creamy. The majority of it was, but like think of it as if you were eating like uh soft serve strawberry ice cream made out of real strawberries. That is that's kind of the texture that you get, like where you still get like a little bit of those chunks of strawberries in it. That was the type of texture it had inside. Um, it was a good balance, but it was, when I bit into it, it was like that moment of, okay, my brain did not like process or expect what I just ate, or what I just tasted. So anyways, these also have very, again, they have different types of fillings. The red bean paste isn't, it's more of the standard one, the iconic one. But some of them also do custard, which is ice cream, matcha, and some even do, I guess, savory ingredients, as it says here. I'm not really sure how those taste. I haven't really had the chance to try any of those iconic ones, but it's definitely a different type of taste to it, and I really, really love it. I'm more of a sweet tooth, so I love anything sweet. And then of course you have your beverages when you go there. Ramune, the iconic one that we know, even here in America, we know it. uh, Tapioca, bubble tea. Um, so I would really, really. So I know we have bubble tea here, and I actually had some earlier today. It was great, but it makes me wonder if it's really different in Japan or if it's just kind of the same kind of style, just a little bit adapted. It's kind of one of those situations where it's like, we know what it is here, but when you go over there, it's really different. So, like, when I visited China and I had traditional cuisine over there, it was one of those things where it was so different. I was like, this doesn't taste like anything we have back home. Like part of it was, some of it was good, some of it was like, um, but I mean, it makes you wonder how much of this stuff tastes the same over there, how much of it is just adapted because of how much sugar we put into our foods. Because, like I was saying earlier, like with the tagaki, I was expecting it to be really, really sweet. Like I was expecting it to have the custard filling and the ice cream in it. But in reality, it was kind of a dull sweetness when you think of it, which was, it was still good. And then another one was a baked sweet potato that they have here. So this is kind of interesting because when I think of potatoes, I think of like Irish potatoes, and I think of like our main dishes here that have potatoes. I love potatoes to death. I liked baked potatoes. I like sweet potatoes. I like mashed potatoes. um, so it was just kind of interesting, and it seemed like a little bit of a foreign concept to me to see like baked potatoes in Tokyo. I know it shouldn't be, but it was kind of one of those moments where it was like, like that. I don't know why I didn't put that together, you know? um, but anyways, I think it was more or less the fact like since when I think of like Chinese or Asian food or anything really along the coast, I think more of involving seafood. Um, like even when I think about like Louisiana, a lot of the food and food culture that comes to mind is Cajun style. It's centered around seafood. Um, so I guess when I saw like a baked sweet potato stand, I was like, that's a little different, but okay, I'll go with it. So it's kind of interesting because it's not a stand that we would think of today. Apparently they actually go around with a fire stove, as you can see in this picture. They lug around their firewood and their stove burning, and they cook them then and there. And look at these potatoes in here. Those are huge potatoes. They look like the size of my head. So, anyways, this article is talking a little bit about them, and they're not normally a summer festival food, but every now and again you'll see a seller selling them for whatever reason. And I can understand that because when you think of summer, you want to go with kind of those foods that are a little cooler and like you're going to be walking around a lot anyways in the heat, so you want something to help cool you down. So, baked potato is kind of one of those things where it's like, yeah, I can kind of see how that wouldn't really be a popular treat during the summer festivals. Um, but anyways, so they're also kind of, according to this article and several other ones that I've seen, for some reason, and if you know why, please let me know. I'd be happy to hear. For some reason, these baked potato carts are slowly becoming extinct. Like they're not they're not becoming they're not as prevalent anymore. And I don't know if that's just because of the time and effort it takes to lug something like that around, or and with the equipment of modern day, if that's just other cuisines are being pushed out or what. Um, but basically, people just encourage you if you do see it, stop by and try it because you don't know if it's really going to be there next year, type of situation. All right, now that I talked about food and I talked about the festivals, let's go on to the games. Now, I'm going to go over these really quick because I haven't played any of these games, so I really don't know what the whole thing's about except for the goldfish scooping. I only know a little bit about that, and the only thing I know about it is like the whole goal is to get goldfish into a bag. um, and the only reason why I know that is from anime mangas, so that's really bad. But that's the only place I know them from. And then apparently they have Super Ball Suki, Super Ball Scooping. Alright, so apparently this is like you're supposed to fish it out with a pan net and they're rubber balls. So you're trying to get as many as you can into a bowl. I don't know, it's different. A lot of these, actually, now that we're sitting here looking at them, a lot of these games kind of center around scooping things out of bowls. So this is kind of interesting, and that kind of makes me think back again to like the whole being surrounded by the coast type of situation in Japan. Like if that has any play into how these games developed. But anyways, a lot of these seem like you have rubber ball scooping, you have goldfish scooping, you have toy scooping, yo-yo scooping. I'm not really sure what this is about. Apparently, it's more like fishing than it is like actual scooping balls in. Apparently, you're supposed to try and hook one of the balls and get it out. Um, but then you have gun shooting. Now, these are some of the traditional. These are some of the ones I think of when I think about a festival. And I wonder if these kind of came into play from Western culture. I'm not sure. It'd be interesting to do a little bit of research on how these festival games developed. But anyways, you got gun shooting, ring toss, um, a lottery, mass. So I think for this one, it's more or less you get to buy a mask or you get to make one. So that's a little bit interesting. And then of course, you have your food stalls, which we've already kind of gone over. Um, so that was a quick lowdown of a lot of the games. A lot of them are gonna pay to play type of thing. It's very carnival festival. Think of all those games that you go to anywhere really nowadays. All right, and so the last thing I'm going to address is the yukata. Now, the yukata is a traditional dress wear, and there's a lot of debate whether or not a foreigner should wear a yukata or not. Um, I've heard yeses, I've heard nos. I know people who have gone to Japan and have gone to summer festivals there. Um, it's really different because I mean, a lot of people will be like they don't mind. Other people are like, no, it's an absolute no, you shouldn't do it type of thing. This article that I read was more against foreigners not doing it because of the fact they don't know how to properly dress a yukata. So for those of you who don't know, a yukata is, as you can see here, it's not a kimono. Those are two different formal. Those are two different types of dress wears. You have your formal, and then this one's more of your leisurely. But in all honesty, from what I've heard about them, it's not really a leisurely type of thing to wear. So with the yukata, there is much like every other very traditional Japanese dress wear. There is a specific way in which you have to dress or don it. And I think that just comes down to your tradition and meanings. Like in Japan, unlike here in the States with Japan, their formal wear is more, everything kind of has a large tradition behind it, at least with their formal traditional wear that goes back centuries, like their kimonos, their yukatas, things like that. Um, where it's very they have purpose behind how you're dressing it because it means one thing or another. There's meaning behind how it's dressed, type of thing. Um, so with the yukata, uh, this article was kind of going on about how it was against foreigners wearing the yukata because a lot of them don't know how to properly dress the yukata. Another article I was reading was saying it's fine, just read up on it first. So I think the big thing is if you decide to wear yukata, which by the way is not cheap. Um, I think like a very very cheap yukata goes for about $100, $100 US, and or you can rent one. I read that somewhere where you can rent a yukata for a day. Um, but it is one of those things where if you decide to do so, you need to read up on it, or else you will wind up insulting a lot of people. Um, and from what I've heard from a few of my friends who have gone, you will get dirty looks if you're not wearing it appropriately and you are a foreigner. um, so this article kind of goes over how to don it and a little bit about the history of the yukata itself. Um, but it kind of breaks it down. Like there's this part that I've had my screen on kind of stood out to me because it tells you how much of a difference it makes when you're donning this stuff. So you need to make sure, and I didn't actually know too much about yukatas before I started reading some of this stuff. So this was a little bit of an eye opener for me. But if you need to wrap the yukata over your right side of the body. And if you're doing it on the opposite placement, so if you're wrapping it over your left side of the body, that is typically used for funerals. So you don't want to be going to a summer festival donned in a funeral gown. Wouldn't really make sense, and I can understand why some foreigners get dirty looks for wearing them. But it's just one of those things, like, if you're gonna wear it, make sure you're wearing it appropriately. And if you don't know, ask or look it up. I mean, there's no harm in that. But I mean, I had a friend who studied in Japan for a year. She lived with a family, and when the summer festival time rolled around in their area, the family actually got really excited. They actually encouraged her to go, and they basically made a whole, I think it was like a whole weekend out of it. They like got up early and they actually dressed her up in a yukata appropriately. They kind of explained to her the history and things like that about it. Um, and why you want to wear some things like that, or why you want to wear it like over your right side versus your left side, and yada yada yada. Um, sorry. But it was really interesting to see because she was a foreigner. She had been living with the family, I think, for about 6 months up to that point, or something like that. And they got really excited. She was a foreigner, but they were excited about having her dress in a yukata. And this yukata was not one that was or um, bought specifically for her. It was actually a family yukata, which I think is something that is really common to see. I think, I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. It's common to see that because yukatas are expensive and they are kind of categorized as a formal wear. Y'all have a great summer and you learned about something new today. But yeah, I encourage you, like, if you're ever interested in going to Japan or things like that, just be sure you read up on a bit of the cultures and customs if you're attending a summer festival there. Uh, Especially like what it is you're celebrating. um, because each of their shrines and god and goddesses, they all kind of represent a different thing. And so based on that, you're going to see different types of food or different types of activities. Um, so that's something you should read up on. And then yukatas are for females. I think there's some type of male equivalent, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But the yukata is for females. If you're interested in that, definitely do your research before you wear it out in public there. And that's about all I have today. Hopefully, y'all have a great summer and great weekend, and I will see you guys back here next week for another video. Bye!